There's breaking news coming in at this hour. Now, US President Donald Trump has made a statement. The US President has said that his advisors believe that Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to end the war with Ukraine. Important information we're tracking at this hour as the US President Donald Trump has said that Vladimir Putin wants to end the Ukraine war. Remember that this comes even after the US envoys left Moscow without a breakthrough. Now, Trump says that he believes that Putin is open to ending the nearly 4-year-old war in Ukraine. His envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner held hours of talks with Mr. Putin inside Kremlin. Important to understand that both sides said that no compromise was reached and that in fact Moscow even called parts of the US plan unacceptable, including proposals for Ukraine to give up territory in the eastern Donbass region. Still, it's important to understand that the US President in the latest has described the meeting as very good, going on to say that his team came away with the impression that it was Vladimir Putin who would like to end the war. The envoys will now meet in Ukraine's top negotiator Rustem Umerov in Florida for follow-up talks. Important information we're tracking at this hour as it seems as though the US President Donald Trump has claimed that the Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to end the war with Ukraine. Listen in to the reactions coming in.
In Ukraine, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there last night with Vladimir Putin. Can you give us an update about those talks? It sounds from what the Kremlin is saying that they're not going to compromise. Can you tell us what you've...
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. It's, when I was in this office and I talked about no cards, I said, you have no cards. That was the time to settle. I thought that would have been a much better time to settle. But they, in their wisdom, decided not to do that. They have a lot of things against them right now. But you have President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take two to tango. Ukraine, I think we have something pretty well worked out with them. They're very satisfied, considering. But the sad part is, if I were president, no war would have ever happened. They would have had 100% of their territory. Nothing would have happened.
Well, on this, my colleague Arjun joining us from the broadcast. Arjun, contradictory statements coming in from the United States. On one hand, the advisors say that no compromise has been reached. There hasn't been a breakthrough in, of course, the talks with Russia. But on the other hand, the US President Donald Trump says that he has reasonable evidence to believe that the Russian president is willing to end the war with Ukraine.
Well, peace in such a geopolitical confrontations, and especially in the international corridors of power, is not an immediate remedy. Talks have been ongoing. There has been progress made, and we've also need to kind of realize that there were Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff were with President Putin for around 4 to 5 hours together. And after that, the Kremlin also, in fact, came out with a statement saying that it did not reject all US points, neither did it accept all US points. And the Kremlin, in fact, has been constant in its position, stating that whatever discussion happened between President Trump and President Putin at the Alaska summit, the details of which have still not been made available to media till now, Russia still stands by those very terms. Now, negotiations more or less are taking time with Ukraine here, where there are a lot of variables, a lot of shifting points, and that's exactly where Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are heading now, Reed.